While we're waiting for the release of Alone in the Dark Remake, I thought it would be fun to take a look at references from the original that's visible in the trailer, spotlight video, and prologue, so we can get a sense of where the game got its inspiration from and make informed speculations on how this influence might steer the direction of its narrative. Starting off with the demo, the first thing that drew my attention was the papier-mâché mask with a brightly colored top, which Grace says she would like to paint a mustache on. This is a clear nod to the progenitor Edward Carnby, who looks almost exactly as visualized. As for his modernized version, along with Emily Hartwood, they retained their designations from the original, except now they're working together even though we still have to choose one character per playthrough. When they are introduced in the prologue, Emily gave a couple of lines that's also an allusion to the original.
Last night I dreamt that my uncle hung himself in the attic, that we were too late. The house looked different, but it was still called Derceto.
In order for us to understand what that's all about, we need to take a look at the framed images found in the lobby of Derceto that details the manor's history. The site used to be a plantation bought out by a man named Elijah Pickford, who then ordered the creation of the home. In the prologue, I believe that's what we saw through the doorway of the bathroom. Just a quick side note of something I noticed a bit late in the production of this video. Prior to the construction of Derceto, the surrounding territory was basically a swamp, so Mr. Pickford hired a bunch of people to have it landfilled. This means the swamp portion we saw in the prologue is also a reference. Shortly after the American Civil War, Derceto was used as a temporary base by the Union Army. In one instance, an unexplained violent incident involving them happened, which resulted in Pickford getting offed and the manor sat on fire. Its charred walls are visible in one image. This is as far as what the prologue accounts through pictures, but it's important that you also know what happened afterwards. The ruins were bought by a man named Howard Hartwood, Jeremy's father, who had Derceto rebuilt according to its initial design. Unfortunately, Elijah Pickford, the guy who bought the plantation before him, turns out to be a pirate captain named Ezekiel Prext, who dabbled in the occult and was not dead. His spirit inhabited an old tree found underneath the mansion, waiting to transfer his essence into a host. Since Howard died of a heart attack, the next target was Jeremy, and in order to prevent that from happening, he got rid of himself. Similar to Emily's dream, on the original, they visited the mansion after Jeremy already committed the fatal deed. But based on the trailer and spotlight video, he's still very much alive, so the question now is, what's their goal in the remake? The only clue that we have is what's mentioned by Mikael Hedberg, the writer and game director.
Real or not, something is definitely corrupting the mind of Jeremy Hartwood. Something very, very dangerous.
In the 1992 version, Jeremy's haunting took some time before it drove him to near madness. So my guess is the entirety of this game would probably revolve around protecting him from what he calls the Dark Man, a moniker similar to the original, referring to the spirit of former pirate captain Ezekiel. In this modern version, the subject in question is most likely this shadowy figure that's tied to ancient Egypt and solar eclipse. I've looked this up, but nothing is materializing just yet. There was an Egyptian sun deity named Ra who carries the sun across the sky on a barge, and at night has to travel through the underworld where he's pursued by a giant serpent named Apep. During a solar eclipse, some scholars have speculated that this could have been viewed as the snake temporarily devouring the sun, but I'm not sure how that would connect with the story. The only clue that we have so far regarding this question is a quick mention of the Dark Man's temple.
The Dark Man isn't real, Jeremy. There's nothing he can do to hurt you.
How do you think any of this is happening? How do you still not trust my words?
Fine.
Don't be foolish. He will bury you next to me in his sunken temple for an eternity.
There's also this shot shown in the spotlight video. In the original version, Jeremy wrote down on his diary a description of a dream that's very close to what we're looking at now. It says, I was wandering in dunes among giant stones. They were arranged in a circle and wind whistled about them. I plunged my hand into the soil. I was gripping a knife. I can only speculate that maybe he's in possession of a cursed artifact that belongs to the Dark Man, which might explain the so-called Heartwood curse that Mr. Hedberg mentioned in the video.
Emily Heartwood has a closer connection to the plot, as she is Jeremy's niece, and therefore also suffers this strange affliction known as the Heartwood curse.
So he might very well be at the center of this whole mess. At least Grace seems to think so.
Oh no, Jeremy, what have you done?
Her presence throughout the available materials right now make her an ominous character. Initially, I thought she was the younger sister of Cassandra Beauregard, the writer of the script, just based on her interaction with the typewriter.
Uh-oh, Cassandra, I'm touching your typewriter.
But it turns out her surname is Saunders, which is another unanswered question included in our pile. Based on the trailer and spotlight video, it's clear that she survived after the prologue. How did that happen? And also, why did she react to the strange happenings around her like it's not out of the ordinary? And the way she interacts with the protagonists is also quite mysterious, like a ghostly presence that's probably there to guide them. Maybe that's what's going on. She's the one who sent the letter and got the story moving after all. A light in the darkness, as they say, or more specifically, a grace in the dark. At this point, we have more questions than answers, but as the game's release date comes closer, it's only natural that we'll get to know more about its story, and when something relevant is revealed, I'll make sure to update you as always. Thank you for watching!